It was last Wednesday, right?
28th, right?
No, wasn't it the 26th? It was last Wednesday.
Up to 28th, I have given numbers, I know. Namo Arihantanam, Namo Sittanam, Namo Vayayanam, Namo Vajjaya, Namo Lobe Savasam. Mangalam Bhagavan Viro, Mangalam Gautamo Gani, Mangalam Kunda Kundadyo, Jaina Dharmostu Mangalam, Sarva Mangala Mangalya, Sarva Kalyan Karakam, Pradhanam Sarva Dharmanam, Jainam Jaitu Shashanam, Jainam Jaitu Shashanam, Jainam Jaitu Shashanam. So today we are going to study this 12 conduct rules of a spiritually minded householder. In Hindi, it is Gyani Shravak ke 12 vrat. Gyani Shravak ke 12 vrat. 12 woes of an enlightened householder. This is another alternate title you can write down. 12 woes of an enlightened householder. So, with right belief and right knowledge, there comes right conduct. So, when a householder with right belief and right knowledge, so with the right belief, the darshan mo, or the darshan mo is illusion, and darshan mo. So faith deluded. Okay. So initially, when a householder attains samyak darshan, or the right belief, then he attains the right belief, and along with that, the first crowd, the first, what it is called, quadruplets, the first quadruplets of passions, okay, that also goes off. So it is called Anantanubandhi Kashai. So Anantanubandhi Kashai is the one which stops the right belief. So a householder, once get enlightened, he destroys the first quadruplet of passions, and then with due, then it starts practicing discriminative knowledge time and again, and then the presence of the second quadruplet does not allow him to take any vows. But after practice, at this stage, the householder has the right belief regarding the purposeful element, has attained self-realization, but still hasn't attained the internal purity that would allow him to accept vows. So he is at the fourth stage of spiritual development, and he is of course an enlightened soul, but he has not attained the internal purity to that extent that he can take vows. So that the same soul, from fourth stage, he starts advancing, and with repeated practice of discriminative knowledge, he gets rid of the second quadruplet also. It is called apratyakhana varnakasai. The first one was anantanubandhi, then apratyakhana varnakasai, and then pratyakhana varnakasai, and then sanjalan kasai. There are 4 levels of passions. So out of this, when the first level goes, you attain right belief, and it is in the fourth stage of spiritual development. And when with further practice of descriptive knowledge, the second quadruplet or the second level of passions also goes, then you are able to achieve partial renunciation of 5 sins, and that's and against that you are achieving the not the Mahavrat but the Anuvrat. Okay, so 5 sins, partial renouncement of 5 sins, and you are getting 5 types of Anuvrat. This Anuvrat is called we'll see when it comes. So we'll begin the chapter. So this is basically of an enlightened householder who has also got rid of the second quadruplet of passions, and because of that he has achieved the purity, and along with that purity he is also able to renounce 5 sins and observe 5 partial abstinences like non-violence, etc. So those 5 are non-violence, that is ahimsa, then partial observations of truth, then partial abstinence from stealing, then partial abstinence from indulging in chastity, and the last one is limitation of worldly possessions. So we have 5 kinds of sins: hinsa, jhoot, chori, kushil, and parigrah. Okay. So partial abstinence of each brings on this woes. So there are 12 woes in together. So the first 5 is about the partial abstinence of the 5 sins. Then to protect and these 5 1 minute, 5 conduct rules. Okay. So these are 5 main woes of limited nature. Anuvrat. I was telling you about Anuvrat. What is Anuvrat? Anuvrat is 5 main woes of limited nature. Just because it is not Mahavrat. So Mahavrat would be 5 main woes of not limited but complete abstinence. So that is Mahavrat, and that only a monk can take up. So as a householder, you have first stage is the 4th stage of spiritual development, and then with further practice of descriptive knowledge, you achieve the 5th stage of spiritual development. And when you achieve this 5th stage of spiritual development, that means second quadrillip of passions has also gone. Then at that point of time, along with that purity that you are having, just because the 2 quadrillip of passions have gone away, so there is a level of purity that you have achieved. And along with that purity, you have this auspicious sentiment. And because of this auspicious sentiment, you are able to take these woes. So this is how it goes. So we'll just read the first 3 paragraphs to understand what I've explained you so far. So Rajeshri ji, you can read the first 3 paragraphs. Subha ji, you try. You are not able to unmute yourself. Okay, then we have to look at somebody. Nidhi ji, can you read? You have the book with you? So Darshit ji, you only try.
Okay, Jai Jinendra to everyone. So the 12 conduct rules of a spiritually minded householder in the 5th stage of spiritual growth. One who has real right belief is a sentient being. In the absence of the first 2 stages of passions, which lead to infinite births, a sentient being develops partial spiritual purity. He is called a spiritually minded householder. The spiritual purity that has been developed is called real abstinence, and in the presence of such purity, tendency to renounce 5 sins and observe 5 partial abstinences like non-violence, are called external conduct rules. Such feelings of merit automatically appear in a sentient being. Such abstinences are of 12 kinds. Partial abstinence from the 5 sins, including violence, is called 5 rules of conduct of the lower stage. The second classification of 3 abstinences are just to safeguard the 5 rules of conduct of the lower stage and to develop them. The 4 training conduct rules are just a practice of the higher observances of the state of monkhood.
So there are all in 12. So the spiritual purity that has been developed is called real abstinence. That is called Nischay Vrat. This is Nischay Vrat. The spiritual purity that has been developed is called real abstinence. And in the presence of such purity, tendency to renounce 5 sins and observe 5 partial abstinences like non-violence, etc., are called external conduct rules. So there is a partial renouncement of the 5 sins of violence, falsehood, theft, unchastity, and possessions. Okay, so these are the partial renouncement of the 5 sins. And because of this renouncement, you are able to practice this limited vows of non-violence, then truthfulness, limited vow, then non-stealing limited vow, then chastity limited vow, and the last one, non-possession limited vow. In the textbook, the 5 different names are given: partial abstinence from violence, then partial observation of truth, partial abstinence from stealing, partial abstinence from indulging in sex. It will not be a right word, but partial abstinence or chastity limited vow, brahmacharya anuvrat. So this is chastity limited vow. And the last one is limitation of worldly possessions. So non-possession limited vow, parigrah pariman vrat. So these are the 5 anuvrat. First is ahimsa anuvrat. Then we have satyanuvrat. Then we have acharyanuvrat. Then we have brahmacharyanuvrat. And the last one, parigrah pariman vrat. So this is the first classification of the 5 rules of conduct. In the first paragraph, there are some correction. One who has real right belief is a sentient being. So this is not correct. A sentient being can be a person with wrong belief also. So a person who has a real right belief is an enlightened soul. So you can just strike sentient being and write down enlightened soul. In the absence of the first 2 stages of passions, okay, first quadruplet and the second quadruplet. So the first one was Anantanubandhi Kasai, and the second one was Apratyakhana Varana Kashai. So the absence of the first 2 stages or first 2 levels of passion, then which lead to infinite birth. So this is not there in the Hindi textbook. So just strike away, which lead to infinite births. This is to be deleted. A sentient being, again sentient being, enlightened soul, develops partial spiritual purity. He is called a spiritually minded householder. So at this stage, the pure and impure, both kinds of dispositions are found, which makes it partial right conduct, Des Charitra. Okay. So because that second level has also gone, so he is able to take woes, and these are the five woes, five main woes of limited nature. Okay. Non-violence, truthfulness, non-stealing, chastity, and non-possession. So these are the five anuvrat. Then to support and to support this anuvrats or the limited vows, there are three gunavrat, merit vows, and the last one is the four training vows. These vows serve to train a householder to practice the rules of conduct followed by monks, and hence are known as Shikshavrat. So that householder now wants to become a monk, and that's why these four training vows, he practices these four training vows. So all things goes simultaneously. Here the purity also keeps on increasing, and the spiritual stages of development are also, you are moving ahead in that sequence, and two levels of passions are gone, and to that level the purity, partial purity has also come up. So many things happening simultaneously. First one is, we can make out, is the second quadruplet of passions going away. The second one is the enlightened soul attains the fifth stage of spiritual development, and he attains partial purity, and along with that there is auspicious sentiments along with that purity, and because of that sentiment he is able to take vows. So he's taken that vows, and he's also what he has done is partial abstinence of five sins, five types of sins. So all these things are happening simultaneously. Such feelings of merit automatically appear in a sentient being, appear in an enlightened soul. Such abstinence are of 12 kinds. Partial abstinence from the five sins, including violence, etc., is called five rules of conduct of the lower stage. Why it is lower stage? Because it is a anuvrat, and it is a partial abstinence, not complete abstinence. That's why it is lower stage. The second classification of 3 abstinences are just to safeguard the 5 rules of conduct of the lower stage and to develop them. The 4 training conduct rules are just a practice of the higher observances of the state of monkhood. So all in all, this is 12. Now my question, whether the second quadruplet of passions goes first or the vows are taken first, which one would you choose? What happens first? The
passions go away first.
Of passions or the taking of vows? Who was trying?
Do the passions go away first?
Pardon?
The passions go away first?
Yes, yes. The passions goes away first, and then only the right kind of vows are taken. But even if the second level of quadruplet has not gone, still householder also take this kind of vows, but it is of not much use. First, he has to attain the right belief and the right knowledge, and after that, he has to. So, with right belief and right knowledge, the first quadruplet of passions has gone. Now, with more practice, the second quadruplet will also go, and this is the time that the householder feels of taking vows. So it is always the passions that goes first, and then simultaneously, not simultaneously, and then the householder has this kind of sentiment to have this partial abstinence from the 5 sins. So
Sir, I don't think it's necessary, sir, because I myself I have craving for onions and all. I have stopped eating it right now, but I still crave for it. It is out of knowledge only I have, or whatever, karma, I have stopped eating it, but I still crave for it. So my passion towards that has not yet gone.
So you have to understand it properly, and once you understand the logic behind abstinence, you will be able to get away with the cravings also. So it takes some time, but the first part is you need to have a right conduct and right belief, and along with that right conduct and right belief, if the second quadruplet goes, then only you are able to take these vows. Okay, so it is very sequence wise, and this is what I'm talking about, the right path. Then there are people, as I said, they don't have even the right belief, and still they become monks. They become monks also. So those kind of people are also there, but the initiating into a monkhood is not doing any good for him, just because he is not having the right belief in the first place. So the first thing that we need to do is not take up these vows, but first to have the right belief. So once you achieve this right belief, along with that, the right knowledge also follows, and along with that, the right conduct also follows. So without the right belief and right knowledge, the conduct is also not right. So it is a false conduct. So it is of no use. So the cravings will always be there until and unless you achieve this right belief and right knowledge. And after achieving this, attaining right belief and right knowledge, then with little bit of practice of concentrating on the self or practicing the descriptive knowledge, you will be able to get rid of the passions. And once you get rid of the passions, the cravings will stop automatically. So if you follow the right sequence, you will be able to stop that cravings of whatever cravings you have after taking woes also. So you have to take the, you have to renounce the thing in a right manner, in a right sequence. So it starts with the right belief, then right knowledge, and then comes the right conduct, wherein the first quadruplet of passions goes along with the deluded karma. And after that, with further practice, the second quadruplet also goes, and this is the time where you are able to take vows. Okay, now we will just read through these 12 vows of an enlightened householder. The first one is the 5 main vows, Anuvrat, or the 5 conduct rules of the lower stage. The first one is partial abstinence from violence. So only this part, the partial abstinence from violence. Prinalji, you can read it.
Jai Jinendra. 5 conduct rules of the lower stage. Partial abstinence from violence. To renounce the feeling of violence in a broad way is partial abstinence from violence. Before understanding this, it is necessary to understand violence. The loss of the purity of activity of the soul with the rise of feelings of passion is psychic violence, and the loss of our own material vitalities and those of others due to the feelings of passion is material violence. In his Purushartha Siddhi Upay, Acharya Amrit Chandra has written, rise of imperfections like attachments in the soul is violence, and their absence is non-violence. If somebody acts carefully without any feelings of attachment and aversion, and even then some living creature is killed, that is not violence. As against this, if somebody entertains passions in his inner self and is also careless in his external activities, he is guilty of violence. Even if no living creature is killed or injured due to his activities and movements, to sum up, determination of violence and non-violence does not depend upon death or preservation of life of any being, but upon the presence or absence of feelings of attachment and aversions. Violence is of 4 kinds: violence with determination, business violence, violence in household activities, and contemptuous violence. When feelings of cruelty only lead to determined violence of living beings, that is violence with determination. Violence in activities like trade and commerce and those in the household or other activities
You become mute.
1 second. Yeah. Sorry, if laptop battery was low, sir.
No problem.
Yeah, when feelings of cruelty only lead to determined violence of living beings, that is violence with determination. Violence is activities like trade and commerce are those in the household or other activities in spite of the care to avoid it are called business violence and violence in the household activities. Violence caused unwillingly with a view to protect our family and religious places is contemptuous violence. Spiritually minded householder renounces violence with determination completely. Feelings of such violence do not arise in him. He also tries to keep himself away from other three types of violence as far as possible. This observance is called partial abstinence from violence.
So, in the first paragraph, there is a definition of bhavhinsa and dravyahinsa. Bhavhinsa is psychic violence and dravyahinsa is material violence. Okay, so this concept of bhav and dravya is clear because we have taken in 4 or 5 topics the same concepts. So to renounce the feeling of violence in a broad way is partial abstinence from violence. Partial abstinence from violence. So basically, in the presence of right belief and right knowledge, the partial renouncement of broad violence is known as partial abstinence from violence, or it is known as limited vow of non-violence. Ahimsa Anuvrat. The emergence of alien dispositions like attachments is itself known as internal violence or the bhav hinsa, psychic violence. With the instrumentality of such internal violence, the injury caused to other living beings, physical injury, is known as external violence or dravya hinsa. In his Purshat Siddhi Upay, Acharya Amrit Chandra has written, rise of imperfections. Rise of imperfections like attachment in the soul is violence and their absence is non-violence. Rag Dvesh ki utpatti is hinsa and Rag Dvesh ki utpatti nahi hona is ahimsa. So the rise of imperfections or the rise of dispositions like attachments and aversions in the soul is violence. Any kind of attachment is violence. So this is the definition given by Acharya Amrit Chandra Dev in his book Pursat Siddhi Upay. The other day we had studied that essay on non-violence. Okay, so during that time also we had come upon this definition of violence and non-violence. So there are 4 types of violence. Before that, this is also very important paragraph. If somebody acts carefully, means he is observing the due diligence, okay? If somebody acts carefully without any feelings of attachment and aversion, and even then some living creature is killed. So somebody is acting very carefully, he has got good awareness, and that's why he's not having feeling of attachment and aversion. Okay. And in that stage, if some living creature is killed, then it will not be called a violence. Even there is a physical injury or the physical death has happened, a living creature has been killed, but just because first part is he was acting carefully, and the other part is without any feeling of attachment. So once he is not having a feeling of attachment and aversion, that means he is in that passionless state. He's in that passionlessness state. So even if some creature is killed, he is not going to bound karma of just because of that violence. And there is another analogy also. If somebody entertains passions in his inner self, that means there is a rise of passion in his inner self and is also careless. Okay. So he is not observing the due diligence and is also careless in his external activities, he is guilty of violence. So there is no physical violence, but still he is guilty of violence. He is bounding the karma because of that violence. So this is the, I would say, subtle, most subtle definition of non-violence. Okay.
Sir, can you give some example for this?
So a monk was passing through the path in the jungle, and he was taking care, and he was observing all the activities just to achieve passionlessness. And in spite of taking so much of care, a small insect was flying, and it came under the foot of monk. So there is a physical violence being carried out, but still the monk is not bounding any karma. Why? Because he was practicing due diligence, and he was quite aware of his movements, and the main thing is he had no intention to kill anybody. So the binding of the karmas is not on the basis of activities of body, mind, voice, and the body. Okay, it all depends on the belief. So just because the monk was careful, and he wanted to save even the small insects also, and accidentally one insect came and it got killed. So the monk is not binding any inauspicious karma, and in fact he is not binding any type of karma. So and even a person walking on the path, looking here and there, not looking at the path on the road itself, and still he is not binding and still he is not killing any of the insects, but because of his negligence, he is going to bind karmas. Okay, even if it has not killed any insects or any other living beings, but still he would bind that karma. So it all depends on our sentiments. If our sentiments are good, then we don't bind any karmas, and if our sentiment is not good, then we bind these karmas. So the physical death, even if the physical death is there or it is not there, the binding of the karma is not dependent on that. It is dependent on the your awareness, your belief, your right, your knowledge. It depends on those.
So, sir, I had heard this from somebody. Now I don't remember exact context. कि हम कन्मुड़ छोड़ने का व्रत जब लेते हैं, so then anybody else also eating kanmud anywhere else, we don't get the karma from that. And if अगर हम वो व्रत नहीं लेते हैं, फिर even if I'm not eating,
right,
but if anybody anywhere else it is being consumed, we get the dosh from that.
Yeah, so that is there in Pursat Siddhi Upay, and that concept is around 44th verse, and it says, what is one good word for that? Atikram, Vyatikram, Atichar, Anachar. Okay, so it is called the woes of Atikram. So if you have not taken that woes, then you are binding those inauspicious karma. So it is this Charnaniya concept always says to take, woes according to a householder or the woes according to a monk. So it is always encouraged, but it is, in fact, it is also not like that when you consider it from the perspective of Dravyan Yoga. Okay, from Charnan Yoga, it is always a violence, and that's why it is always good to take this vows or the niyam, niyam. You have to take this niyam. If you are not taking niyam, then even if you are not killing not doing any physical violence, still you are bounding those karmas just because you are not taken the vows. So that concept is
Sir, sir, if manthi, agar if you take from heart, just that I'm not going to eat, but then you don't take a vow under Guru, is it okay?
So again, as I said, first of all, you need to have right belief, then right knowledge, and then right conduct. Okay, so if we are not having right knowledge and right belief, then whatever kind of vows you take, even you become a monk, it is not going to be of any benefit to you. Okay, so you have to first attain the right belief. So once you attain the right belief, and then if you are taking this kind of vows, then definitely it's going to help you from binding of the karma. So it is not only about the bodily activity, it is also about the belief. Okay, so first you need to have the right belief, then the right knowledge, and then comes the right conduct. Now the conducts are of also two types. One is at the monk level and the other is at the householder level. So depending on the depending on your capacity or the present situation, one takes vows. So it should be with right belief and the right knowledge. Then only it makes sense. So in the Shastras, we have an example of Dravyalingi monk, Dravyalingi monk. So he is as good as a true monk, but still he is not a true monk. He is not Atmagyani, and he is not even, he is not having a right belief also. But still he is a monk. So those kind of things always happens, and that's why the acharyas have given instruction to have the right belief first, and then only acquire this kind of vows. Then it becomes fruitful. Then you get the benefit of it. So we were doing this, to sum up, determination of violence and non-violence does not depend upon death or preservation of life of any being, but upon the presence or absence of the feelings of attachments and aversions. So the violence has a direct connection with the attachment and aversions. It is not on the activity of the living being. So this violence is of four kinds. Violence with determination. This is called Sankalpi Hinsa. Okay. The second is business violence. It is also called Udyogi Hinsa. The third one is violence in household activities. That is Arambi Hinsa. And the fourth one is contentious violence or the Virodhi Hinsa. So the first one, when feeling of cruelty only lead to determined violence of living being, that is violence with determination. So this violence with determination is also called intentional violence, Sankalpi Hinsa. So violence committed cruelly with an intention to harm or kill, example, abortion. Okay. Then we do this pest control to kill cockroaches and other insects. Then we have this mercy killing of pets, murder, suicide, and all forms of intentional injury is called Sankalpi Hinsa or the violence with determination. Then we have violence in activities like trade, that is Audyogi Hinsa, harmful acts committed when doing any appropriate business. Okay. Example, farming, construction. These are all those kind of business, even mining. So these are those kind of businesses where there is a violence, activity of violence is involved. Then the third one is violence in household activities. So a householder has to commit this non-avoidable violence in order to survive. Like you have to prepare food every day. So when you prepare food, you light up the gas. Okay, so there is always a violence because you are lighting up the fire, and because of that fire there is violence. So this is called domestic violence. The main part in this is that these are some unavoidable violence. You know, you are not doing any intentional violence. That is the first category. This is the second category, domestic violence or the violence in household activities. So here the householder does not want to commit any violence, but still while cooking on fire, while cutting vegetables, usage of water and electricity, all these are directly or indirectly connected with violence. Okay, so these are the violence which cannot be avoided when you are in a position of a householder. Okay,
So
so
does wearing footwear qualify in this?
wearing footwear while cooking,
Just every day.
every day, yeah, it is again a kind of domestic violence only. This is something you cannot avoid. You have to wear these chappals and all. And if you are going, you know, with a bare leg, okay, so there is a gap, you know, there is a gap in the leg. So because of that, very little violence happens. And if you are wearing a chappal, then the violence is more. So this is something we cannot avoid. So this will fall under the domestic violence or the violence in household activities. Then we have business violence, which we have seen just now, that harmful act done during doing any appropriate business like farming, mining, construction of buildings, and manufacturing of what I would say, arms and ammunition. Okay, these are all industrial violence or the business violence. The last one is Virodhi Hinsa, defensive violence or contentious violence. So what is this about? In spite of and violence caused unwillingly with a view to protect our family and religious places is contentious violence. Okay, so this is Virodhi Hinsa. Even though not desired, the harmful act is committed for the defense of religion, religious institution, country, family, or self, etc.
Sorry, Rajesh, could I ask a question, please?
Yeah.
So when it comes to this contentious violence,
Yeah.
and we connect it in terms to protecting, for example, the temple.
Yeah.
do we still get, I mean, I'm sure we get karma for or negative karma attached to us for that.
So
Or is it
it depends on your intent. Your intent now is to protect the religious place. Okay. So you have a very noble intention. Okay. So you will not bind those karmas. Okay.
Okay.
You will bind, on the contrary, auspicious karma. Just because you are protecting your place of religious place. So it is like that. So it all depends on the intent. Okay. So if your intent is to harm anybody or kill anybody, then of course the karmas will also be bound, and you will suffer. You will be binding the inauspicious karmas, and you will suffer on the fruition of those karmas. So this defense violence is even killing a murderer for your own defense, okay, or killing of anti-nationals by police. These are all defensive violence. So, because just now you are a householder, you have not become a monk. If you would have become a monk, then this would not have been allowed. Okay. But since you are a householder, and in that spiritual stage, you do have feeling for protecting the religious places, protecting your family, protecting religious leaders. All these kind of sentiments you do have when you are a householder. So this kind of violence are still allowable. So these are the four kind of violence. Out of these four, spiritual minded householder, okay, renounces violence with determination completely. So when you reach that fifth stage of spiritual development, you are renouncing that violence with determination completely. Feelings of such violence do not arise in him. He also tries to keep himself away from other three types of violence as far as possible. This observance is called partial abstinence from violence. Okay, so the enlightened soul, the enlightened householder, he renounces violence with determination completely. He don't plan to kill anybody, you know. So he is renouncing that violence with determination completely, or it is called the intentional violence. So he is so those kind of feelings only don't arise in him. So, and he also tries to keep himself away from other three types of violence. So it is not that you are getting a license to do those kind of violence. So the intentional violence, the householder completely renounces, and the other three, he tries to minimize it as far as possible. And this is called partial abstinence from violence. Now we will move on to the second part. Oh, I have crossed the time limit. If I cross more than 5 minutes, somebody should remind me, okay? Because everyone's time is important and we don't want to drag it, you know, that way. So we will continue tomorrow and finish this chapter, and then we will move on to the next chapter. So निज निधि निज में बताई, यह अनंत उपकार है उसके लिए जिन वाणी माँ को वंदना सतवार है, उसके लिए जिन वाणी माँ को वंदना सतबार है।